Okay.
And go ahead, Tom.
Okay. Hey, everybody. Tom Deutch here. I'm a key leader with Symmetry Financial Group. I'm direct to George Matthews, who's the fourth one over on the top on my screen. I work very closely with Scott Forehand. I'm very fortunate to do that. Scott's been with Symmetry a couple of years now. He's an agency manager, agency owner. And one thing he's done is he's really embraced this debt-free life. He's dug in and done a lot more digging and research and being a student of the business. And one thing I love about him is he loves to share information. So that's why we're together tonight, is we're here to learn a little bit more from someone who's really become an expert at this. And just to put that into perspective, I think Scott did his 50th family this week. So 50 debt-free life plans. Over $30 million in debt will be saved when those plans are executed. And I think you said, Scott, it was north of $90 million better to people's retirement funds as a result of going through these plans. So, we've got access to a guy who knows a lot about what we're all interested in. And without any further ado, Scott, appreciate your time and thank you for making yourself available tonight.
Thanks for the kind intro, Tom. The check's in the mail.
I didn't get last week, so I'm not expecting one.
Well, I don't know where it is. It's the U.S. Postal Service. It's always their fault. Okay. Oh, yeah. Just a little note about that. I have found that at my last business, I used to get 50, 100 pieces of mail a day. And every day I would always receive mail that wasn't mine. Okay. So that leads me to believe, and I started counting, and it was sometimes 3, sometimes 4, sometimes 6 pieces of mail that weren't mine. So what I realized was about 3% of the mail that we send doesn't get where it's supposed to be going, and we have no idea where it's going. So awesome job, U.S. Postal Service.
Have you ever watched Seinfeld?
Many times.
Newman.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you again very much, Tom, for the intro. And so I just want to add a little bit to that. I had a conversation with some of the folks at Symmetry Corporate, and we were looking at debt-free life and looking at actually how, as a company, we're performing with this particular vehicle. So I've got some additional updated numbers that I wanted to let you guys know about what this is doing and what the impact this particular policy or solution actually that we have is doing across the country. So based on an extrapolation of numbers that had been recorded through September of 2019, where we'd only been in the market for 4 months, what we're looking at here is roughly in the first year of this particular vehicle through Symmetry Financial Group, we've eliminated $54 million in taxes for our clients. We've eliminated $77 million of interest. We've eliminated $238 million in debt. And this is the cool one. We've created over $500 million in retirement for our clients since we started this program. So that's thank you, Logan Long, for that information. If you ever get a chance to listen to this, and here we go. So debt-free life. Welcome to Debt-Free Life. Today is the 4th of June, 2020. My name is Scott Forehand. I am an agency owner here at Symmetry Financial Group, and I am in the parlance of Symmetry, I am direct to Janet and George Matthews, my coaches and my mentors and my friends. And I'm very happy to be so. So what I'm talking about today is debt-free life. The reason why you're here is you were invited by either one of our Symmetry underwriters or brokers. You might be invited here by me as one of my clients, or maybe you're an agent and you're just trying to get a better handle on what and how to look at debt-free life and the different perspectives that you can use and how maybe it can be presented in a different way. So what is debt-free life? Well, the name debt-free life is actually a play on words, and what we're using is it's a life insurance policy. It's a very specific kind of life insurance policy, but the idea is that we're using your debt and we're turning that on its head, and we're using your debt as a source to fund and grow life insurance and ultimately fund and grow retirement. So what is the what does this end up being really if you execute a debt-free life plan? Well, what is that plan? It's a battle plan, and the battle plan is a plan that we use to help defeat your debt. So there's some videos that Symmetry's created that are called the debt monster. So this is kind of like the battle plan to defeat the debt monster. But for those of you that are military or have ever studied military history, the one thing you always know is that no matter how good of a plan you have, it always or never, in this case, actually never really survives contact with the enemy. So one of the things that I like about these debt-free life plans that we create is that they are fluid and they can be modified and changed and updated, because at the end of the day, no matter how much you plan, no matter how much you follow the system, life happens. You're going to need a new roof. You need a new car. I don't know what happens, but something's going to happen. And maybe we just need to make an adjustment or a tweak to your plan to incorporate that debt so that it gets paid off in good time as well. So this is a standard set of questions that we ask everybody. Are you 100% sure that you're going to have a good retirement? And I don't know anybody that can answer that question. I have yet to meet anybody who's 100% certain of that, other than somebody who is every day looking at their 401k, managing their 401k, 4 or 5 times a day. And those people are probably okay. But those people, that's an inordinate amount of time to try to manage something like that. And if you don't have the proper training or the proper experience, it's real easy. I can attest to that. It's real easy to make a mistake that can lose you a ton of money in just a few seconds. So that's the first question. The second question is, and this is, again, it's kind of a no-brainer. If we could show you a way to get out of debt in 9 years or less, would you want to hear about it, including your mortgage, without you spending any more money than you're already spending? And one of the things that I like about this question is that it fits everybody. But the truth is, as I'm going through these policies and these solutions that we've put in place, I realize that's not really true, because 9 years or less, that works for most people. But the beautiful thing of this, I've seen these plans work in 2.3 years. And the worst case I've ever seen it work is 15.6. So really, if you have any debt whatsoever, whether it's a house, car loans, student loans, doesn't really matter. But if you've got any kind of debt, then this plan will work for you and it will get you out of debt. Like I said, and the longest I've seen it take is 15.6 years. The shortest is 2.3 years. So the way I like to word this question is, it's going to get you out of debt anywhere from 15 to 27 years sooner than you would normally be out of debt. So moving on. When we look at the American public and the average American household, this is what we see. We see that the average American is going to spend about 34% of their income on interest rates and interest over time. About 40% of their money is going to be spent on taxes. About 23% of their money is going to be spent on lifestyle. What's that? That's putting gas in your car, putting food on your table, paying your power bill, paying your water bill, doing all those things. And if there's anything left over, some fun stuff, paying for your Netflix bill, going to a concert or a ball game when we can go to those things. And that last little sliver at the top, that 3% savings, that's what the average American is using to save for their retirement. This is not the American dream. This is not the way it's supposed to be. And we are spending way too much money on interest. We're spending way too much money on taxes, and we're not saving anywhere near the amount of money we should be for our retirement. So if you are the average American, this is probably pretty close to what you're doing. This is exactly me. When I did an analysis on my wife and I, this is exactly where we're at. And there's a better way, and that's debt-free life. And this is another example of the American population. Average American makes plenty of money in their lifetime. They're going to make about $2 million. The average American does not save enough money. The average American only has about $60,000 in their retirement accounts when it comes time to retire. So they're relying on, many times, equity in their homes, which is where this whole reverse mortgage concept has come out. They're relying on the federal government, Social Security, maybe a pension if they have it from their old employer or if they're military retired. But the majority of the folks in this country do not have enough money for retirement. And if you are of the mindset that the federal government is going to be there to bail you out in the future, I would strongly encourage you to reevaluate that position and just ask yourself a simple question. Are taxes going to go up? Are they going to be able to rescue Social Security, which is going to be bankrupt in 2030 if they don't fix it? So, so there is another way to do this, and that is not rely on the federal government, not rely on the state government, not rely on anybody else but yourself. And this is the way we can do it using this system. If we look at what people have told us in the past about getting out of debt and the approaches that we were to use, we were told to work harder, get a second job, spend less money, go eat ramen and tuna fish like you're back in college again. Do some consolidation, refinance the debt. Okay, these are methods that sometimes work, but they're super inefficient. And that last one down there, debt snowball. Let's talk about that for a second. So debt snowballing in its original form, original concept was take your money, take your debts, whatever they are, figure out what the highest interest rate was, pay that off, and then whatever money you were spending for that, pay that on the next debt the next month. That's not really debt snowballing. That's called debt stacking. And it is a way to eliminate debt. It is not the most efficient way. And what we practice here is a concept of infinite banking coupled with true debt snowballing, which means we're actually looking at which way is the best way. What's the best order to pay off the debts? What's the best way to get to the largest retirement? What's the fastest way to get out of that debt? And there's only one answer. There's 100 or 1,000 different permutations of different ways, which one comes first, which one comes second, and so on. But there's only one perfect answer. There's only one perfect solution. And what we will do is we will find it for you. And we're going to find it using our very expensive software and the knowledge that we've spent learning how to do these systems. So what I'm talking about? The better way, which is that way that we can get you out of debt in 9 years or less, or as I said earlier, in 15 to 27 years early, which is really what we're talking about here. So the plans that we put in place are going to do a couple of different things for you. They're certainly going to eliminate debt. They're going to increase your cash flow, which is critical. They're going to decrease the taxes you pay over time. They're going to decrease the interest you pay over time. And at the end, if you structure it correctly, we're going to create wealth, not just for you and your family, your current family, but also potentially generational wealth for your grandkids, or maybe even your grandkids' grandkids. That's a little bit more in depth than the basic DFL plan, but there's a way to do it, and we can certainly show you folks that way. So when I look at the average American household with an average debt of about $250,000, what I'm finding is that number is actually a little bit light. It's probably closer to about $325,000, $350,000, but that's the average household on the left. And in their current situation with that amount of debt, paying their standard 34% interest, 40% in taxes, 3% savings for the future, and 23% spending money on their lifestyle and paying their bills and all those sorts of things, they become that average American. They become that makes $2 million in their lifetime and only $60,000 available at retirement. So what we do with Debt-Free Life is what I said in the very beginning. We turn debt on its head. We use our debt to fund our retirement. We put ourselves in a position where we can take loans from ourselves to pay those debts. And in that same aspect of taking a loan from yourself, we also decide the interest rate that we want to charge ourselves. Okay. We're going to increase our lifestyle from 23% on the left side of your screen to 33% on the right side of the screen. That's a critical piece here, because what does that really represent? That represents a 43% increase in cash flow. That means if you think of yourself at the end of the month, you normally have $1,000 left over in your account after you've paid all your bills and done everything. Well, simply by executing this plan, that number is going to be around $1,430. That's it. It's that simple. It's just going to be changing the way you spend money, creating a much stronger, permanent, tax-free retirement for yourself, eliminating that interest over time, or some of it, and eliminating the taxes you're going to pay over time. In this case, some of it. And where's all that money going? It's going into, as we just demonstrated, part of it's going into your lifestyle money, and part of it's going to your retirement. So we're going to take that money, we're going to make it work for you forever. So let me just go through these numbers really, really quick. So if I increase your savings that you have for retirement from 3% to 15%, what am I really doing? I'm increasing the amount of retirement you have by 500%. That's how the numbers flesh out. So if you are the average American and you're going to have $60,000 at retirement when you're ready to retire, I'm going to change that to 300,000. And I think everybody here on this call and on the Zoom is going to agree it's a heck of a lot easier to retire with $300,000 in the account than it is with 60. Okay. Moreover, we're going to make that money work for you permanently. Let me say that again. We're going to make that money work for you permanently, and you're going to be you're going to have a couple of holy cow moments here in a few minutes when we look at those numbers and see how they actually work out. So things to note here: taxes reduced from 40% to 30%. That's actually a 25% decrease in the taxes you're going to spend over time. Decreasing the interest that you pay. We're going to decrease the amount of interest you pay over time by 35%. And again, that 43% increase in lifestyle is certainly nothing to scoff at. So with our plan, we're going to show you how to do this. We're going to show you how to do all those things we just talked about: reduce the taxes, eliminate the interest, improve your cash flow, create another retirement solution that's tax-free, not tax-deferred, tax-free. And we're going to put you in a situation where you're going to be able to weather any financial storm. So that the market hit that all of our 401ks took back in 2008. With this plan, we don't care. The fact that we're in a pandemic right now, with this plan in place, we don't care. That means, and the companies that we're using have been around for a long time. So that means that these plans have been around. They've worked through recessions and depressions. They've been through pandemics, like I said. You're going to be able to weather any financial storm, which is a key component of what we're looking at here. One of the other things that I want to talk about is the plans that have been in existence before this. They all have holes. There's other solutions that I've seen that are out there that this is not a terribly new concept. It's been around for 100 years or so. It's just that previously, all the other solutions that are out there, there is some hole in the solution. And one of the main holes that I see with some of the major players that are in this industry before us is that they don't really plan for that emergency. So how do we plan for the emergency? Well, every time you make a payment, as you were here in the beginning of this, we had a little brief discussion before we started. We talked about how your premium is paying for your bank. It's funding your private bank. It's funding your solution that we're going to be using to help you pay off that debt. Well, the other thing that it's doing, it's actually creating a cash reserve. This is not money that you can't get to. It is going to be there forever. It is something that you're getting paid interest on. It is something that you're getting paid a dividend on. And by default, it is also something that you can't see when you're executing these plans. It is truly an emergency fund, and we don't want you to touch it unless it's truly an emergency, and then you can get to it. But it's there. So the emergency fund is going to represent about 20% of the funds that we put into these vehicles over time. It's also, like I said, it's going to get paid an interest rate, guaranteed. It's also going to get paid a dividend. It's going to grow. So why should I do this instead of a 401k? That's a great question. If you've got a 401k, I'm going to challenge you to go look at your most recent report. And I'm going to say, there's exactly why you should do this instead of a 401k. So if you'd started one of these plans 3 months ago, you'd be up. You wouldn't have lost a dime. If your money was in your 401k and it was invested where it could make money, a good return, and invested in the market, you've probably lost somewhere between 20 and 30%. Our system does not care about the market. We do not care whether the market goes up, down, or sideways. Our system does not require management. Our system, there's no management fee associated with the money as it grows in those vehicles. It's not like a 401k. It's not like that solution where every couple of months your broker or your financial advisor, financial planner, whoever you've got managing it for you, takes a look and says, oh, these plans are working better now. Let's go ahead and move it over here. And in most cases, every time that happens, they're getting a little commission. This doesn't do that. We don't care about that. We don't have to change. There's nothing that we have to make a decision on. It's on automatic pilot. And you will get a guaranteed 4% return that's compounded monthly. And that's a critical thing. Compounded monthly, 4% return plus a dividend. So when I'm looking at side-by-side comparisons of a tax-deferred investment vehicle like a 401k versus a tax-free retirement vehicle like a debt-free life campaign, if I invested $10,000 and let it run for 28 years and never touched it, and I got an average of a 7% return, which ours will get higher than that, at a 25% tax rate when I pulled that money out. Because don't forget, tax deferred means you owe tax. And as the money in your tax deferred account grows, so does the tax that you owe in that tax deferred account. So when I do everything and run all the numbers, our system with the same amount of money over the same period of time, getting the same interest rate with the same tax rate at the end, is going to perform at that, what you see, which is $17,000 greater. That's almost 30%. It's huge. Okay. So why should I do a 401k versus a debt-free life campaign? It's a no-brainer to me. Tax deferred is okay. Tax-free is way better. No matter how you look at it, it's way better. So how does debt-free life work? Debt-free life has three components, three phases in which you execute the plan. The first phase is the maximization phase. And what that is, that's when we're looking at your debts, we're figuring out the best way to snowball your debts, doing a true snowball, and we're planning out your roadmap as far as when you're going to get out of debt, what debts you're going to pay off, in what order, and what month you're going to pay it off, and yada, yada, yada. And at the end, when you're debt-free, then you move on to the next phase, which is the accumulation. During the accumulation phase, you don't do anything. You just keep paying your payments, you keep growing your bank, you keep building up the money, you keep getting the dividends, you keep getting the interest, and you just go about your happy life. Again, if structured correctly, that means the change from the maximization phase to the accumulation phase, you're not spending any more money than you're spending today on your debt management. We're not trying to create another bill. We're just trying to show you a way to make your payments more efficiently. And then the last part, the distribution phase, that's the fun time. That's mad money. Do whatever you want to do with it. Make your retirement. Go buy that new jet ski every week. Go take trips to Tahiti whenever you want. Or, in many cases, what I'm seeing, take that $40,000 or $50,000 a year tax-free income every year for the rest of your life while not touching anything in there for your family, creating that legacy and that generational wealth. Okay? Next, I told you this has been around for a while. These are some of the people that you probably may recognize that have done this. Walt Disney did this when he started Walt Disney World and Walt Disneyland. Doris Christopher did it with Pampered Chef. Ray Kroc did this with multiple McDonald's locations, and Warren Buffett does it to this day, executes plans like this to this day. This is not a new concept. Where this stems from is, let's say you've got a great idea and you want to start a $200 million project, but you don't have $200 million. And the bank will lend you $200 million, but they're going to charge you an arm and a leg to get that $200 million. So what Walt Disney said is, never mind, I'll do it myself. He had 10 million. So he went to, and I don't remember the name of the company, but he went to a private insurance company, got them to create a plan like this for him, where he was earning a greater amount of interest on his money than they were going to charge him to take out the loans. And that's what we do here. We're paying ourselves to take a loan from ourselves. Walt Disney did it, worked like a charm for him. It worked for all these people. Okay. It's not rocket science. It's just math. So in the end, Ray Kroc did it multiple times. Warren Buffett does it to this day. You can do it too. It's simple. The concept is a little bit difficult to get your head wrapped around. It was for me. And that's why you're here today. Hopefully I can help you get through that. But once you understand it, once you get it, you'll see the truth, and then you'll see the value in it. Next, how's the plan work? And it's what I've already said. We're just going to redirect the way you spend money. We're going to make you spend it more efficiently. We're going to grow that policy value slowly at first. And then over time, as the snowball picks up, it's going to roll and roll and roll. We're going to be able to take money and pull money out of the account in a tax exempt manner. We don't have to wait for the IRS to give us permission to do it, like a 401k or a Roth. We don't have to let the IRS penalize us if we don't take it by age 72. It will pay off, for most people on this call, it will pay off your debt in 9 years or less. And we can manipulate the system and how well it flows and grows, and it's going to oscillate. It's going to go up and down based on whether we structure our payments as repayments of a loan or whether we structure it to build up additional loan capacity in the beginning. As I mentioned earlier, this is just a plan, and plans change. We can always add additional expenses as they come up in the future. Maybe you're a young family, you're going to have to pay for braces for your kids. Maybe you're going to have to buy them a car when they turn 16. Maybe you're going to have to send them to college when they're 18. I don't know. The idea, though, is that once we start one of these plans, it's going to give you control. It's going to give you an opportunity to make those decisions when the time comes. And the last thing, again, this is life insurance. At its core, it's just life insurance. And we're going to leave a legacy to our family that's going to be a tax-exempt legacy. So moving on, these are some examples. $84,000 paid off, $100,000 paid off in 7 years, $73,000 in 5 years. This is not abnormal. These are normal solutions. I've seen this, though. Those are actually from some of the solutions that I've done and some of the people I've helped. Those are actually pretty light. I don't know how many people that only owe $84,000 on their mortgage. I don't know many people, if they're a family, they only owed 73, right? And certainly, if any of them have gone to college and had student loans, I don't know any of them that have less than $50,000 or $70,000 of student loans. But the point is, this will work for anybody, regardless of your station in life. As long as you're under 75 years old, you can get one of these plans put in place. Ages, got to be between the ages of 18 and 75. That's really the only restriction. And you have to be relatively healthy, meaning that you haven't been given a toe tag yet. So pretty much we can get just about anybody covered, or at least we can get somebody in their family covered. So how does the system work? So let's talk about how you spend money right now. The way you spend money currently, as you make that money, comes to you because you worked your job, you got a salary, whatever, however you make your money, and then you make that deposit, that income, into your bank, regardless of who you bank with. Citibank, Wells Fargo, Navy Federal Credit Union, doesn't really matter. You make the money. And then that money sits in that bank. Your money sits in that bank, and that bank makes money with your money over and over and over and over again. And do they give you anything for it? If they're very generous, you might get like a 1% return, maybe a 0.5% return. But most of the time, the answer is no. And most of the time, they'll say, well, we're not charging you for your checking account. That's what we're giving you for it. Great, thanks. Okay, so you're putting your money in the bank. Let me ask you this. If you've ever deposited a large amount of money into the bank account, have you ever tried to go get it immediately? I have. And let's say $10,000 is the example. So I deposit $10,000, and then the bank tells me I have to wait 3 days. Where's my money? Either the money is still with the individual that wrote me the check, which means I don't have it yet, or the money is in my bank and they won't let me access it, which means I don't have it yet. Either way, I'm out $10,000 for that period of time. Somebody's using my money and they're not letting me do anything with it. Not cool. So what the bank is doing, however, just so we're all on the same page, is they're actually making money with your money over and over and over again. So the average time that every dollar that you put into the bank gets used 7 times before you actually get to tell your bank to pay that debt, where in essence what has happened is you've changed your money into the creditor's money. Your money's gone forever. And in the process of waiting for that money to be paid, the bank's made money with your money over and over, and you didn't get anything for it. Banks don't really own anything. The only reason banks can exist is because you give them the power by putting your money in the bank. So what we do here at Debt Free Life is we're going to change the paradigm, and we're going to do something a little bit different. And here's our Debt Free Life method and how we do it. Same solution. You make money. That doesn't change. You deposit the money as income into your bank, into your checking account, whoever that is. It doesn't really matter. Here's where we differ. We take the money out in the form of a life insurance premium, paying $100, $50, 150, 200, 5,000, whatever. Doesn't matter. Whatever your premium is, you make that premium payment, and you move it up into your life insurance policy, which is nothing more than a whole life insurance policy, right? Whole life. Everybody knows about whole life. It's a permanent life insurance policy, builds cash value over time. It will stay with you for the rest of your life. Once you get the policy issued, you never have to qualify for it again. Okay. So we have a whole life policy, but here's where what we do differs. We actually separate that one premium payment that you're making into 3 different parts. We separate it into a term life rider and a paid up addition rider. Okay. So in and of themselves, the term life and the paid up addition component are nothing more than riders on your whole life insurance policy. The whole life is the base policy. How does your money get split? About somewhere between 62 and 68% gets split into paid up additions. We'll talk about that in just a second. About 4, maybe 5%, depending on your health and your age, is going to get paid to a term life rider. And the balance of it is going to go into that whole life policy. Of the money that gets into your whole life, it gets split again because some of it becomes cash in that whole life. Remember, I told you we create about a 20% reserve. It's cash. That's where it's hiding. It's hiding in your whole life policy as cash value. You can't see it. It's there. It doesn't go away. It grows over time. Every time you make a payment, it grows. Every time you get the dividend, it grows. Every time you get the guaranteed interest rate, it grows. So it's growing 3 times every time you make a payment. Well, you only get the dividend once a year, but it's growing every time you make a payment. So what happens to your money? So you've taken that money out of your checking account, which means the bank isn't making money with your money anymore. So what are we doing? We're moving our money into a scenario where we have our own bank now. This is our private bank. We're taking our money, pushing it through our normal checking account, paying our life insurance premium, moving it up into our private bank, which is a DFL bank, okay, which is really nothing more than a whole life policy. And then the money's going to sit there earning the guaranteed interest plus a dividend. So let me talk about those other 2 riders here. Term life. Why do we have a term life rider? The reason why we have a term life rider is because this plan works because of IRS tax code 7702. And that says that any monies derived from a life insurance policy are going to be tax exempt. But it also says as long as the cash value does not exceed the life insurance value. So the reason why we have a term life rider on this plan is because we're creating an umbrella. We're creating an umbrella that's a whole lot larger than the policy when it first starts. And that umbrella shields this from IRS intrusion. So the IRS can't say, oh, you're doing this wrong. You've got too much money in there, because we've got this life insurance umbrella with a term rider, which is usually $50, $100, $200, $300,000 more than your base policy. Then the IRS can't say anything about it because we've got a lot of life insurance on day one. Okay, that's why we have a term rider. Why do we have a paid up addition rider? This is, if anything's magic about this, and it's not, it's just math, but if anything's magic about this, this is it. So what is a paid up addition? It is life insurance. Okay, but it's unique in that once you pay for it, you never have to pay for it again. So this is a critical concept to think of here. So if I buy $1,000 worth of paid up life insurance, how much is it worth as soon as I send in that check? It's worth $1,000. How much is it worth tomorrow? It's worth $1,000. How much is it worth in 10 years? $1,000. How much is it worth in 30 years, assuming I live that long? It's worth $1,000. So that is something that is worth $1,000 from now until I die. And when I die, how much is it worth? It's going to pay my beneficiary $1,000. So what we just did is we created what the banking industry considers to be the safest kind of investment on the planet. It is something that cannot lose value and will never lose value and will always be worth exactly what we paid for it. Gold. People think that gold's a great investment. I do. However, do I know whether the gold is going to go up or down? Probably going to go up, but I don't know if it's going to go down first. And I don't know when I'm actually going to need the money from that gold bar. So is this a safer investment than gold? Absolutely. So when I look at this, is considered a tier 1 investment with banks. Okay, so what does that mean? Tier 4 investments would be something like, as a bank, making a loan to a 20-year-old of $1 million to go open a restaurant. So restaurants are high failure. 20-year-old individual, maybe the best cook in the world, might be a great people person, probably doesn't have the knowledge or capacity to run a restaurant at age 20. Is that a good investment? Absolutely not. That's a tier 4 investment. Banks consider this a tier 1 investment. This is right up there with any kind of like a CD, those kinds of things. So how important are tier 1 investments? Just as a, for example, banks, Wells Fargo is a good example. 48% of all their assets are structured in tier 1 investments, including life insurance policies. They buy life insurance policies. There are companies out there called viatical settlement companies, and you've probably heard them advertised, and they'll say, if you've got a policy, it's got at least $100,000, give us a call before you cancel it. It's probably worth money. So what they're going to do is they're going to say, yeah, it's $100,000. You're going to live for 3 years. We'll pay the premiums. Here's $10,000. Just sign us over as the beneficiary. Okay. So banks know that life insurance policies have value, especially ones that are already paid up. So that's what the paid up addition is. So 68% of every dollar you spend is going to, with your life insurance policy, is going to create permanent value. That permanent value, that 68% with the paid up addition, it's going to get interest attached to it, 4% compounded monthly. It's going to get a dividend every year. And oh, by the way, this is where we derive the loan capacity for your bank. We've got that umbrella that shields us from the IRS. And now we've got the loan capacity, which is still based on life insurance. So if I have $10,000 sitting in my DFL bank as paid up additions, how much can I borrow? 95%. So I could take out $9,500. Do I have to ask the IRS if I can do it? Nope. Do I have to fill out a loan request? Probably not. If it is, it's just a form that I'm signing and saying, yeah, I want to give myself $9,500 deposit into my account, please. Is it liquid? It's not liquid in the manner of you might be thinking where you can go down and use your debit card and get it out of your Wells Fargo account, but it is liquid in the matter that you can probably, in most cases, you'll be able to have that money deposited directly to your account, in some cases in 24 hours. So moving on. So this is what you're doing. You're taking that money, you're making that life insurance premium payment. It's going up into your private bank, your DFL bank. It's getting split into 3 parts. Whole life is where the core policy is. Term life creates the umbrella. Paid up additions is where we grow our bank. So let's say we've been doing this for a month or two, and now it's time to pay off one of those debts. We've got a small credit card. We owe about $1,000 on it. We've been paying $600 or $700 a month into our account, and we've got over $1,000 in our bank. Now it's time to pull the trigger and pay off that debt. How do you do it? Just simple. You get a loan. You get a loan from the carrier. So I had somebody ask me last week, I've got some more research and I'm just going to go ahead and say, what's the limit of the loan? It's up to 95% of how much is in your bank. How frequently can you take it? As often as you want. That was one of the requirements for the carriers that we use for this plan, that we don't want you to be charged extra money if you need to take multiple loans per month. And more importantly, they had to have the infrastructure to be able to support multiple loans per month. Okay. So I've gone through this process. I've taken my carrier loan. That money comes out, it goes back into my checking account, and then I instruct my bank to pay my debt. I do that either in the form of me writing a paper check out of my normal checking account, or I use my bill pay or whatever methodology you usually use to pay your debts. And then I pay off the debt, and then that money becomes their money. So a couple things to take from this illustration. Where's your money? Your money is still sitting in your DFL bank. You did not use your money. How did the debt get paid? You used the loan. You used that carrier loan to pay the debt. So do I have to pay back the loan? Great question. And There are strategies where sometimes you do and sometimes you don't. It just depends on the way the policy is structured. But at the end of the day, no, you don't. The reason why we can only borrow 95% is because that other 5% that's in there should be enough so that the guaranteed interest rate and the dividend that comes in every year is going to be enough to pay off that loan over time. And we'll show you some illustrations where that is exactly what happens in just a few minutes. So the point of this whole illustration is I'm not creating another bill for you. We're not putting you in a situation where you have to go out and make more money or cut corners or change what you eat or stop going out and having a good time and enjoying life. That's not what we're saying to do. What I am saying is that what you're doing right now is inefficient. And every time, think of it this way, every time you make a car payment, where's that money go? It goes to the car company or whoever your lender is. Is that money yours anymore? No, it's gone forever. If you're really, really nice, will they give it back to you? No, it's gone forever. You can take out another loan. So in this scenario, I don't have to ask the bank if I can take out a loan. I'm the banker. I own this. I control this. I determine whether or not what I want to lend myself money for is appropriate. That's the only danger, and I've been trying to shoot holes in this thing since I started learning about it. That is the only thing I can come up with that is the fall down for this particular process, which is many times people that you hear these stories about the lottery winners that win a lot of money and they come into it and all of a sudden 3 or 4 years later they're broke again. The problem with this still exists. If you're not accustomed to having access to or managing large sums of money, then you have to make sure that you have the discipline that you don't spend that money on a want and that you only spend those monies or those funds on needs until you're debt free. And then go crazy. Okay. But the whole idea is to get you to that point where you're debt free and you've got a nice retirement. So let's look at some examples. So what I've got right here is a family I worked with back in October of last year, and nice folks. They are what I would say probably is a standard family with most of the people that I run into. They've been, they're in their 30s and 40s. They've been working for a while. They own a lot of stuff. They're a blended family where the wife was previously divorced and so was the husband, and they got together. So they had 2 properties, which is why you see a personal residence and other property listed down there. The wife and the husband both have gone to school. They've got student loans. The husband owns a business and he had a little bit of a IRS tax problem, which is why you see some of those tax issues that are there. And they've got some credit cards. This is normal. So this particular family, if you look at their true debt of $584,000, that's if they were able to write a check tomorrow to pay off those 2 houses and pay off all their student loans and their cars and their credit cards and yada, yada, yada. That's how much of a check they'd have to write tomorrow. Is that how much they actually owe? No. Why? Because of interest. So that number there on the right, 767,000, that's their actual real debt after you take into consideration how much interest they're going to have to pay over time. Moreover, some of those student loans were structured as 40-year loans. So they're actually going to be paying everything for 40 years. They're going to be 40 years before they're debt free. So there's a better way. And all we did in this case was look at what they were paying, figured out what they were overpaying. They were overfunding a 401k. They were overpaying on some of their credit cards, overpaying on some of their personal debts, some of their private debts. And this is what we came up with. By changing the way they spend money, not the amount, the way they spend money, we were able to get them completely out of debt in 7.8 years. So we went from 40 to 7.8. So reading between the lines, what does that really mean? That means that instead of paying debt for the next 40 years and having nothing to show for it other than the equity in their house, that they're going to have all that equity in their house now, and they're going to be able to put all that money into a retirement solution for the next 40 years if they want, or 30 years. So this is the method. And if you'll notice here, there's some of these debts had 0% interest. Great. Some of these debts had high interest. There's a 25% there. There's a 9%. But if you look at the order that these are paid off, this is what I was talking about. This is the difference between debt stacking and debt snowballing. Debt stacking would say, I'm going to pay off the highest interest rate one first. Debt snowballing says, which one gets me to the largest number the fastest, and which one gets me out of debt the fastest? So with I'm not going to get too deep in the math, but there are probably over 1 million different ways that you could have orders that you could have paid all this stuff off. This is the absolute best way. And if you look, that fourth debt down is a 25% debt, but is it getting paid off in month one? Nope. It is not. That's not the order. The order that's presented here is the best order to pay these things off. So now let's look at this. If this family had not done this plan, what would it have cost them? Well, it would have taken them 40 years to get out of debt, and they would have had equity in their homes. But by executing this plan, by changing the way that they're spending money and allowing the snowball to work for them, allowing their debt to work for them, allowing the effect of compound interest to work for them instead of against them like it does with an amortization schedule, this is what happened. We saved them $70,000 in interest. That's good. That's a lot of money. I'll take it. More importantly, though, at that same 40-year run where this family would have had nothing but the equity in their houses, now they've got the equity in their houses and $4.8 million liquid in their plan. And that's through the course of just simply paying their premiums, doing the snowball, allowing that compound interest effect to take hold and grow. Here's how it happened. So the individual that we used as the target of this, the life that we insured, was 36 years old at the time. They make a lot of money as a family. They've got good income and they were overpaying a lot of debt. That's where this number came from. It didn't come from anywhere other than the amount that they were overpaying on their debts. In the very first year, they're going to have $12,000 liquid. They're also going to pay off $14,000, almost $15,000 in debt. That's huge. This is where it gets to roll, though. In the second year, when I run these plans, what I see over and over and over again is sometime between year 2.1 and 2.6, average about year 2.3, the debt snowball really takes hold. It really starts to roll. And I like to think of my favorite Christmas cartoon is The Grinch Who Stole Christmas. And I think of that picture of the little dog pulling that big sleigh, and they got the one antler tied onto the dog's head. And all of a sudden the dog trips. And he trips and he rolls and he rolls. And all of a sudden that huge giant snowball starts. That's what this is. That's how this works. We're making your debt work for you. In the second year, look at that. We're paying off more debts. Every one of these yellow years is a year that we're paying off at least one debt. But we have $40,000 left over at the end of the year. The third year, we're paying off $58,000 worth of debt. And in the fourth year, we're building it up to $91,000. We're going to talk about mortgage chunking in a few minutes. So this plan does not incorporate mortgage chunking. I cannot illustrate mortgage chunking with the software, but I'll show you how it works in a minute. This is where I would have done a mortgage chunk. In this next case, we're taking out $96,000. That's paying off one of their houses. Next year, we're taking out $68,000. That's paying off all of their student loans. And in that last year, in year 7.8, we're taking out an additional $117,000. We're paying off the balance of their mortgage, and they are completely debt-free. Not only are they debt-free, they have $75,782 sitting in their bank account. So when I go back and I look at where they were paying their debt for 40 years, having nothing but the equity in their homes to show for it in 40 years versus this without them spending any more money than they're already spending, being completely debt-free, 100% equity in their homes, and having $75,000 in the bank, in their private bank, it's a no-brainer, right? So how did it get to $4.8 million? Well, because they agreed that they were going to keep their snowball going and keep their premiums going. So earlier we had a question at the very beginning of this: why does it go up? Why does the premium go up? We talked about the term life rider. That's why it goes up. In this case, it actually goes down because we're dropping components of the rider. So for this case, the gentleman said he wanted to retire when he was 75. So at 75, he no longer pays in any premiums, and he's got $4.8 million. But what we were able to do is say, look, this gentleman's name is Alex, good friend of mine. Alex, tell you what, you can keep working until you're 75 if you want. I'm going to make it so you can stop at 65 if you want. So at 65, he's got $3 million. Is there anybody here who thinks they could retire on $3 million? Yeah, I think I could do that. Moreover, when I look at $3 million, here's a trick. Assuming we stop making our premium payments at that year, look at the very next year. 3.17 million, right? And we only added in a premium of 10,600. So we'll take off 11,000. So it's 3.166 million. So what does that mean? That means through compound interest and dividends, this plan is building $150,000 a year, starting at age 65, whether he gets out of bed or not, whether he makes a premium payment or not. Is it too good to be true? I thought it was. It's math. It works. It's a contract. It works. Okay. So moving on, do you have to have a mortgage to make these things work? What if you don't have a mortgage? What if, say, the only thing you have is some debt, like a student, for example? So here's another one that I worked on. This is with a young woman. She's 23 years old. She's in a master's program right now. She's got some debt. Most of it revolves around student loans. All these are student loans. She's got about $80,000 in student loans, maybe a little bit more than that, and she's got a couple other odds and ends. Okay, she works as a waitress. She makes about $2,000 a month as a waitress. She's got rent. She's got a car payment, but not for long, not with this plan, right? So this is where she is. Because of her student loans, she's going to be paying off her debt for 40 years. She doesn't have a lot, but over time, to pay off that debt, she's going to pay $177,000. What's her debt? It's $177,000. It's not the $85,000 that she thinks she owes. It's $177,000 because she's not doing a whole lot to get out of debt now that she can. Where she is doing things and she was trying to pay stuff off, that's where I found the money to fuel this engine, right? So this is what we did for 9.7 years. 9 years, 10 years. So she's going to be 33 years old and have no debt. It's not bad. Pretty good. I'll take it. I'd love that for my daughter. My daughter's 24. She could do one of these plans. She's good and ready to. She doesn't know it. I'm going to make her. Okay. But the point is here is that those debts start to snowball. If you see that first one, that little one, $33 or $51. That's where the snowball starts. That's how it works. That's where it gets the money from. Once that debt's paid off, that $51 is coming back into her plan every month. And then we're paying off the next one, whatever it is. And notice again, these are not paid off in the order of highest interest rate to lowest. It's whichever one makes the best sense for the software to get you to the largest number and get you out of debt the fastest. 9.7 years is not bad. Moreover, simply by executing this plan in 40 years when she's 63 years old, she'll have $603,000 in the bank. Is there anybody here who thinks they couldn't retire with $603,000 in the bank? I know I could. So here's how it works for her. And there's a couple of key things I want to illustrate here. She told me that she wanted to retire at age 65 because that's what her parents told her. Because that's what we're told in the beginning when we start here. We're told it's okay to take on debt. We're told it's okay to, every corner in life, every milestone in life, you take on more debt and more debt and more debt, which is why at the end we don't have enough money to retire with. So she assumes she's going to have to work to age 65. The way we structured this plan, she does not. The way we structured this plan, she can work until age 55. And at age 55, she'll have $400,000 in the bank. That's still enough to retire on. But moreover, look at this. The immediate when she's 56 years old, 1 year after she's no longer paying anything into the plan still grew by $21,000 or $22,000. So what does that mean? That means that we just created a $22,000 a year tax-free retirement for her every year for the rest of her life. So if that was a taxable retirement, kind of like a 401k, when you add on that 28%, that means it's the equivalent of about a $35,000 a year retirement, simply by changing the way she spends money. That's all it is. It's not math. I say it all the time. It's just magic. It's not magic. It's just math. So what do you do from here? So you were invited here because you probably have some debt, or you were invited here because one of the agents, brokers, or underwriters that spoke with you at Symmetry thought that this might be a good plan for you. Will it work for you? I've only met one family so far that it wouldn't work. And the reason why it wouldn't work for them is because they're so far underwater that they can't even make their current debt service. So if you are currently in a situation financially where you're able to pay off your debts, or at least pay the minimum payments every month, this plan will absolutely work for you. If you don't have any debt, will this work for you? Yep. If you remember earlier on, we talked about the 3 phases: maximization, accumulation, distribution. What that means is you've skipped the maximization phase and you're right into the accumulation. So let's put it in there. Let's make it work for you. One more thing I want to say about this plan. I told you that it's tax exempt, and that's important. But there's another key critical component to this that I want to talk about, which is not only is it tax exempt, it's also tort proof. What that means is if you have a 401k, for example, and you get sued, they can list the assets in your 401k and seize them. The IRS can take them. A federal judge can order you to liquidate them. This is tort proof. Nobody can tell you what to do with it. Nobody can tell you to take the money out of it. You have complete control over it. So with that, I got a little bit more I'm going to show you. And I want to do this. So I want to go over mortgage chunking again. I had some more people ask about it, so let me go ahead and show you that, and then we'll get to the point where you guys can ask some questions. I'm going to give you guys a topic to talk about while I'm getting this set up. Let's talk about the price of tea in China. Does anybody really care?
So Scott, if I could add something.
Yeah, go right ahead.
I've been working with several families, and one of them is my own. I have a 24-year-old son. He has a decent amount of student debt. He's been paying it off a little bit aggressively. If he keeps doing what he's doing, he's going to be out of debt in 9 years. This is going to get him out of debt in 3 years. And not only that, he's going to have, I think it was about $40,000 in his account at the end of the 4th year to be completely out of debt. So a lot of times when I was talking to him, I was saying, well, here's your choice. You can get out of debt in 9 years, or you can be out of debt in 4 years and have $60,000 in the bank. And he said, well, could I use that as a down payment on a house?
Absolutely. So, yeah. So so when we do these things and we execute these plans and we help our clients out, or anybody here really, what we're doing is we're really doing, this is not just a temporary solution. This is a permanent solution. This is a choice. And this is something that we have a definitive roadmap that will work. So let me talk about mortgage chunking for a second. So this is mortgage chunking. This is an example of that family that I had earlier. The family with the $215,000 mortgage, which you see down here, which in their normal plan, they're going to pay off in 16.6 years. So get through this. So what is mortgage chunking? Mortgage chunking is taking the money when it builds up in your account and throwing it at your debt, okay? And throwing it whatever debt it is. So I use mortgage chunking as an example. Doesn't have to be just a mortgage. You can also chunk your credit cards, you can chunk your car payment, whatever. Okay, the idea is that we're going to throw that money and eliminate the debt faster simply by eliminating the interest. Okay, so here's some assumptions we're going to make. This is that family that we saw earlier. 30-year mortgage, $215,000. They had normal debts. Their normal debts were going to get paid off in about 2.3 years. Okay. The majority of their debt, with the exception of the student loan and that second house, was gone in 2.3 years, which means the debt snowball has been built and is rolling. And then we also assume that we're going to have about $10,000 a year that we're going to build up in cash value. That's $833 a month in PUA. Don't forget, that's $833 a month after the snowball is built. Okay, so it's not starting off at $833 a month. It's after we've paid off the majority of the debts. Okay, so everybody who's ever owned a house has had a mortgage, and when you closed on that mortgage, you had a big thick stack of documents you were going to sign, and in that thick stack of documents was an amortization schedule. And if you looked at that amortization schedule, even though they probably told you not to, even though they made you sign it, you would have realized that that first mortgage payment isn't anywhere near the interest rate that you were quoted. I think you were probably quoted somewhere between 3 and 5% if it's recent. Okay. So just as a quick analysis, and that first mortgage payment, and this is standard across the board on a 30-year amortization, that first mortgage payment is 74.71% interest. Did you get a sick feeling in your stomach? Do you wonder when you're going to be at that whatever 3, 4, or 5% interest rate is? Yeah, it's the very last year of your mortgage. That's how they're able to advertise it as a 3% mortgage, simply because of the 360 payments that you're going to make. Your 357th payment is only 3% interest. It's pretty sick. So this is a standard amortization schedule. So we're assuming May of 2020 is when we're going to take out, start the plan. All right. So we said 2.3 years later, the snowball is going to start. And we're also going to have that premium built up within our bank that we have the capacity to pull $10,000 out. So going next, 2.3 years later, May of 2023, we have paid down the mortgage just through the normal process of making mortgage payments. The amount that we owe now is $203,000. Okay. And now we pull the trigger and make that mortgage chunk payment. We pay a $10,000 payment. What happens? Now we've advanced through our amortization schedule to the point where we only owe $193,000 on our mortgage. Don't forget, this is now year 2.3 into our mortgage, right? We are now at the equivalent of September 2025. We have advanced just through the normal process of paying our mortgage, paying our debts, doing our debt snowball, and then pulling that first mortgage chunk payment. We have advanced over 5 years through our mortgage. One shot. What did it really do? It eliminated $22,000 of interest. A single $10,000 payment eliminated $22,000 of interest. But more importantly, it made every single mortgage premium payment that we make more efficient. What do I mean? Previously, it was $330 was the amount that we were paying as principal with every mortgage payment. Now we're paying $372. We're not paying any more. The premium is still the same. It's just the amount of that premium that gets applied towards principal is higher. So the numbers actually come out to 11%. So what that meant was, not only did I pay $10,000 off the principal of my mortgage, I advanced my mortgage through more than 5 years of mortgage payments. I eliminated $22,000 worth of interest payments, and I've made every single mortgage payment I make from this point forward 11% more efficient paying off my mortgage. Get it? And then what happens? The next year, you do it again. And then the next year, you do it again. So is it any big surprise that you're going to get out of your 30-year mortgage in 6 or 7 years? Here's how it works, folks. It's not, again, I keep saying it, it's not magic. It's just math. So that's the end of our little presentation for the mortgage chunking and for the overview for debt-free life. As we move forward through this process, we're learning more and becoming more and more adept at this. So I am going to go through, I'm going to look at some questions in the chat box, answer those first, and then we'll open it up if anybody else has any other questions. So let's see. Is it better to have a rental property or to take large lump sum to gain monthly interest? I used to be a real estate broker, and I love real estate. But I also know that real estate isn't at risk and it is subject to market oscillation. If you had bought real estate in 2006 and 2007, you lost your tail in 2008 and 2009. So it depends on your risk tolerance and really your age as far as when you want to retire. I do believe in real estate as an investment. I do not believe in putting all my eggs in one basket. So would I rather have a rental property versus have a DFL? Again, it depends on your age. Me personally, I'd rather have a DFL than a rental property. And then once my DFL gets up to a certain point, then I'm going to take money out of my DFL. I'm going to go buy rental property. Oh yeah, let's talk about that for a second. I almost forgot. Walking into a car dealership and you want to buy a $30,000 car, and you have a DFL set where you can pull $25,000 at will, do you think that car dealer is gonna balk at you offering $5,000 less than what they're listed it for? I don't think so. I think probably what's going to happen is that salesperson is going to get a pep in their step, go in the back, get their manager, and come out with paperwork, especially when you tell them you're writing a check. That's what I think is going to happen. The same is true when it comes to buying real estate. Obviously, if you're looking at real estate as a normal course as an investment, anytime you're buying real estate, you're going to do what's called an earnest money deposit. It's usually somewhere between $500 and $5,000. Think about it like this. What happens if you have a DFL bank set up and you want to go buy that investment property? And you tell them you're going to put down a $20,000 earnest money deposit. What's going to happen? Same thing. You're going to offer them $10,000 less than the asking price. They're going to say, okay. They're going to take that check, go to the bank with it, make sure it's good, and then you're under contract. That's what's going to happen. And you're going to get money off, and you're going to be able to pretty much drive that boat. All right. DMA report. We already talked about that, I believe, Philip. What portion are the 4% interest based on? The 4% interest is applied monthly, and it's based on the cash value that's hidden in the whole life policy, as well as the PUA bank value. So you get that. So it's 4% over the course of a year, divided up into 12 monthly segments. So it's 1/12 of 4% applied each month. So there's a logic to funding the PUA bank as quickly as possible, so that you have that larger sum of money that's getting that 1/12 of 4% applied to it more months. So 4% is what the guaranteed interest rate is. The reality is, after you start putting money in here, especially after the snowball starts, you're going to get more than 4% return. How often can you pay the PUA? We already talked about that one. The two largest banks in America have over 20 billion and 18 billion in this kind of insurance on their balance sheets to protect their assets. Oh, very good. Thank you, Lorene. That's good information. Yeah, let's read that one. The two largest banks in America have over 20 billion and 18 billion in this particular kind of insurance on their balance sheets to protect their assets and their key employees, right? Tier 1 asset, right, guys? All right. George says he has a question.
Hey. First of all, thanks, Scott. That was completely awesome. This isn't the first time I've watched this, and anybody who this is your first time, maybe second, watch it again and again to really absorb this. The more it sinks in, the more you'll be better able to explain it, and B, the more your enthusiasm is going to go through the roof. And that's exactly what Peggy Richmond needs right now. So here's my question. I noticed that you mentioned that the roll-up does go back in, okay? And I'm assuming that, but I saw that the annual premium didn't change.
Correct.
So that roll-up is going back in to pay off the loan?
So, and this is where I had a long conversation with a couple of folks at Mutual Trust about 2 weeks ago, and the way that the software illustrates that you're taking loans and paying off the loan, So you're making your regular premium payments, and then you're paying off the loan with the snowball. That's the way the software illustrates. But I ran numbers that show there's an even better way to do it. And the better way to do it is, again, what I talked about. And I've had this confirmed with Mutual Trust. They say, yeah, you're right. It'll work that way better. Maximizing the funding of the PUA bank as early on in the anniversary year as possible is actually going to provide a better return. So the way I do it when I'm structuring these vehicles, the default when we write the application and submit it, the default is that every premium is going to go pay a loan first or buy PUA second. That's the way the default is when you submit these. I will routinely go back in after I get clear understanding from the client that they understand what we're doing and why. I'm going to say, no, pay the maximization of the PUA first. and then pay the loan second. Because when I do that, that means I've got more of the money in there in the beginning of that anniversary year where I can get that compound 4% interest that's compounded monthly applied. That's going to create a larger number. The only downfall for not paying off the loan first is that you may come out of that 1 year window where the dividend is going to be affected by this. But the truth is, the first year dividend is negligible. The second year dividend is okay. But if I'm going to maximize my 4% growth and I'm looking at a 15 or a 20-year run, having that maximization happen early on in the early months of the early years is going to do better in the long run. And how much better? When I run the numbers, it's 3 to 4%. It's significant over time. Okay. So it's better to maximize the bank first and then take the loans. And then for the rest of that calendar year, because don't forget, there's a ceiling of how much money we can put in. And that ceiling is dictated by the PUA maximum, which is also affected by how much term we have so we can still avoid the MEC. Okay. So making sure we stay underneath that ceiling, but maximizing it to just under that ceiling and then calling up the carrier and saying, okay, from this point forward for the next 3, 4, 5 months, however long it takes, I want my premiums to pay down the loan. And then as soon as the next calendar year starts, the next anniversary year, switch it back, because then I can go maximize. We want to maximize our PUA bank every year as quickly as possible. Does that help you, George?
It does. One follow-up question.
Sure.
So do the illustrations consider and account for the loan interest that is being charged?
I don't know. I assume so, because the loan interest that's quoted is 4.79%.
Right. And the reality is, the more I listen to this and I understand it, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't.
Because it's still your money. It's still in the bank. And that other
Right.
pile over there is still growing at a greater rate than you're being charged interest.
Right.
So,
Yeah, and truth be told, the only thing that matters is after we get to year 6 or 7, when we've got that huge number in there and we're actually getting rid of our major debts, the houses or whatever, that's when the dividends are kicking in. So we're getting our guaranteed 4%, which is awesome, but the dividends are hammering it. That's how we're able to get up to a little, a 23-year-old girl who's got $22,000 a year income, and she hasn't paid into the thing for, she's getting almost as much income from the thing every year as she's paid in. Well, in 2 years, she's getting all of her premiums back on that 23-year-old scenario.
thank you, Scott.
Yep.
I just urge everyone to look into doing this on yourself first, and it'll take your belief level. And when you've run that, I know Donna was exceptionally excited, and when she
6.6 years, baby.
Right.
$1.8 million, baby. Right. All right.
Thanks, Scott.
I don't see any other questions posted in chat. Does anybody else have anything they would like for me to address?
I do.
Let's hear it.
So you earlier on in your presentation, you said a PUA is a solid investment. It won't go down in value. But something you said about 5 minutes ago, I just want to make sure I understand. So you put $1,000 into a PUA, and it's worth $1,000. It's worth $1,000 next year. It's worth $1,000 when you die. But it's also getting the interest and the dividend added on to it. So I know it's a brick of $1,000, but somewhere that money's going somewhere, and we're gaining a benefit from it. So it is worth. It's not a static chunk of change. It's something that grows. It grows your account one way, shape, or form. Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, other bricks are being added in the form of compound interest and dividends. Or if you have a loan, the dividends are structured to pay down the loan automatically.
Okay. Thanks for clarifying.
One caveat about that loan against the dividend issue. The dividend is affected by a number of factors. It's not just how much money is in your PUA and your cash value of your whole life piece. It's affected by your age, not you, but the age of the client, the relative health of the client, and the length that they've been contributing. So as the policies mature, the dividend that they actually get is larger and larger, not just because you've got more cash in there, but also because of the longevity of the policy.
Okay.
So that's one thing. Laureen, you did have,
Yeah.
so if someone has only a mortgage as a debt, the best thing is not to totally follow the roadmap, but to do it annually. I'm not sure I understand your question.
So if they only have a mortgage, the illustration, the roadmap illustration comes back that they're going to pay that off in 8 point whatever, because that's
Right.
the only debt they have.
Right.
So what you're saying is to use, well, two things that I just heard. So one is the mortgage chunking, where you would do it probably annually or a couple of years. And then second of all is to use the PUA maximization rather
Yes.
than.
Yeah, PUA maximize every anniversary year, and then switch it over to pay back the loan. Okay. That's one way. And also, one, I completely glazed over this. I'm sorry. On the illustrations that we show, there's that grayed out column that says savings on the right side. That savings is supposed to represent money going to a savings account because we've exceeded, or we will exceed, how much PUA room we have. Okay. Two ways to get around this. You can manipulate on on a monthly basis where you are, simply by taking loans and paying a debt, chunking something. You don't have to just chunk mortgages. You can chunk credit cards. You can chunk car payments. It doesn't matter. Okay. But so you can take a loan every month, once you get that ceiling, and just oscillate there at the top until you switch it all back over to PUA. You can do it that way. Or what I like to do is I always try to set up a second bank, which I call a pre-bank, on another family member. And what I do there is, it's nothing more than a term policy that's convertible to the whole life plan. So if it's mutual trust, for example, you're going to use the select term policy that's convertible to the horizon plan. Okay. And then when the time comes that I would normally be putting money into a savings account, which they illustrate with our software as a 2% return, I'm going to put it into another DFL bank. I'm going to convert the bank over. I'm going to start making payments and have both those banks growing at the same time. And I'm going to put money in and swap money back and forth as I need. That's another way that I'd rather get 4% guaranteed plus a dividend than a maximum of 2% at a savings account. Okay.
A quick question.
Sure.
Whenever the recording is on YouTube, are the questions on there as well?
Questions.
These questions.
Yeah. I don't cut the recording off until the end.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Okay. What type of business DFL have I done? We've done business DFLs on a trucking company. We did a business DFL on a service company, a legal service company, and we've done a business DFL on a horse farm. I've also assisted other agents doing DFLs on, one was a hair cuttery place, one was a restaurateur. I've done a business DFL on a house flipper. Yeah. So I don't know of any business. And I've done business DFLs on a law firm. So I don't know of any business that wouldn't be eligible for this, depending on how you want to structure the business DFL. If you want to use it as a debt solution, if you want to use it in lieu of, like for the legal world, especially the law firms that do a lot of lawsuits, they're constantly shelling out money, waiting for the big payday when the lawsuit finally gets paid. So they have to front all that money. They usually do that with the form of a personal loan that they can get from a bank or whatever. They usually don't have hundreds of thousands of dollars sitting around. But with the one that we did, that particular law firm will have $130,000 sitting in their coffers probably this year. So in less than a year. So hopefully that answers your question. It works. These business DFLs work for just about everybody. Some things are different, and there's certainly different application process you have to go through and different paperwork that you have to have. Let's see. Where can this be found? These are always posted up on YouTube. Just Google my name, Scott Forehand, and Debt Free Life, and you'll find them. Yep, start another bank. Is that what I learned in the DFL and start another bank? Yes, Mr. Washington, start another bank. And the house flipper that I've worked with, he actually starts a new bank for each house. Just FYI. All right. Anybody else? I don't see any hands. I don't see any questions. I got nobody talking. Awesome. All right. So we're out today in less than an hour. Awesome. Just before 7 o'clock. Well, thank you, everybody. And again, my strong suggestion for you is to get with whoever invited you here. And if you have some questions, concerns, get with them, and they can certainly help walk you through this process of getting a DFL started for yourself. Again, it is not magic. It is just math. No, it's not too good to be true. It is true. And if anybody can poke any holes in this, I'd love for you to send me some information about what holes you can poke in it, because I can't find them. Tom, you got anything?
No, Scott, again, thank you. You did a great job.
All right.
Appreciate you.
George, you got anything else?
Nope. Fantastic. As usual. Thank you.
All right, folks. Everybody have a great night, and see you next week.
Thank you, Scott.
Bye-bye.